Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members and guests. It is October the 9th, 2023, and this is a regular meeting of the West Shore Photography Club. So welcome aboard. I apologize in advance for any decrease in quality of my audio or video because I'm broadcasting not from my home studio, but from a campground in Delaware. In any case, just a couple of items before we get into the image review tonight. As usual, we meet every other Monday night online, so there will be no meeting next Monday night. That's October the 16th. Our next online meeting will be on Monday, October the 23rd at 7 o'clock. And we have a presentation by Michael Downey, who's going to introduce you to the basics of drone photography. I know we have a couple of members over the past few years who've gotten into drone photography, and it's pretty exciting. So even if you don't do drone photography, well, this presentation is for you because it talks about getting involved in the basics of drone photography. So a couple things about trips. The first thing is that Joe's on one of his own. That's why he's not with us tonight. But let me talk briefly about the trip we took to Lake Tobias. From a personal standpoint, I'm in the same boat as Mike Donovan. It was our first visit to Lake Tobias, and I was duly impressed. Very, very nice. We had a bus tour ourselves, an open air bus for the folks who weren't there, open air bus, and hopefully you saw the pictures on Facebook. We had a bus to ourselves, 25 people on board the bus. And we were given special permission to start early before the general public came in. So one of the many perks of being involved with the West Shore Photography Club. In fact, that has gone over so well. We've heard so many positive comments that I've recommended to Joe that we make that an annual trip. Okay, so we're thinking about doing that on an annual basis. Okay, we've got a couple of very, very good trips coming up. And the first one on the list is this Saturday, we're scheduled to go to the Bower. And Elaine's going to talk about the Bower. Go ahead, Elaine.
Okay. The Bower, for those of you who have not heard of it or have not been there, is a really interesting property. I never heard of it until about a year ago myself, when Judy Keim, who is also a member of this club, mentioned it to me, and she had been there a couple of times. It's a 36-acre property that was purchased and developed by two naturalists who are also artists, and they have developed it into kind of what I would call a fusion of art and nature. It is just incredibly interesting. All of the gardens and the meadows that they have, which are surrounded by a woodland property as well, are they've incorporated only native plants as a part of their naturalist approach, but they've imported and incorporated some very large and interesting sculptures throughout the property, and it's just integrated beautifully. So there are so many opportunities there for photography and varied opportunities. You can do anything from landscape to macro photography to just the more or less architectural photography of these gigantic sculptures. So the recommendation really is to bring lenses, first of all, wide angle, normal, and possibly a short telephoto, but also a macro lens if you're interested in that sort of thing. Joe did send out the information to the 22 people, I believe, that were able to get in. This was a restricted trip because of parking limitations, and the spots are all full. So all of those of you who got in should have received a detailed email with some tips on photography and carpooling, which is recommended because they do have very limited parking facilities. I believe, Dennis, you'll be meeting people at Giant, which is where we will carpool. So any of you who wish to do that, we're meeting there at 7:30 to allow us enough time to get there at 8 o'clock. Unfortunately, the weather for Saturday is not looking really promising. It looks like there is a pretty good chance of rain beginning at 9:30, which is only an hour and a half into our trip. And the first half hour probably will be consumed by a very interesting orientation given by the owner. So that would only leave us about an hour's worth of shooting time. But we will continue to watch it. As you know, these weather forecasts are continually changing, and we'll send out a notice if we have to postpone it. Backup plan would be to have it on Sunday, the same weekend, or if Sunday is rainy, then we may have to look at another date. But in either event, we will get back to you on that. Any other questions?
Okay, well, thanks, Elaine. Rumor has it that Joe is going to be picking up coffee and donuts before he arrives, so we can look forward to that too. All right, Sunday, we have a trip on Sunday. We don't usually do this on Sundays, but Mark is going to tell us about the trip to Mill Creek Falls on Sunday, October the 22nd. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there Mill Creek Falls is a trip for doing waterfall pictures. It's down on the off the Susquehanna River in southern York County. It is on Sunday, not Saturday, Sunday, October 22nd. For those interested in carpooling, we'll be meeting at the Giant Food Store at 7:45. If you want to drive yourself, plan on being at the creek around 9 o'clock. As far as difficulty goes, it's not handicap accessible, unfortunately. The trail is very well defined, and it's not a very difficult trail, but you want to wear good hiking, walking shoes that you're comfortable in. Obviously, no admission, also no bathrooms. So take that into account. We did this trip last year, and we happened to time it almost perfectly as far as the fall colors went. Matter of fact, Joe went like 3 days later and said all the leaves were off the trees by the time he went back. So we timed it very well. Okay. If you're one of these people who wants to get down in the water, make sure you wear waterproof boots. Kind of equipment you need: tripod, polarizer, your typical wide angle, normal, and telephoto lenses. Excuse me. Oh, what else do I have to say on this? You'll be doing some long exposure stuff, 5 seconds maybe, depending on how long you like to do those kind of things. And don't be shy about bringing extra leaves and color type of things. As long as they fit in. Excuse me.
Michael's on the way.
Stop at Michael's on the way. Yeah, as long as they're not synthetic. And people are going to, to sprinkle around in a range and that kind of thing. So we had fun the last year when we went and got some really great pictures. And I think this year we got the same opportunities. Okay, that's it, Dennis.
Very good. Thanks, Mark. And then on Saturday, October the 28th, yes, the trips committee has been busy. Saturday, October the 28th, we have a really unique trip plan to the Harrisburg Cemetery for Halloween. Now, this should be cool. Elaine, tell us about that trip, please.
Well, that's another very interesting one. I had never heard of this cemetery until very recently. And Joe and I and Mark went on a scouting trip to see it. And again, I was duly impressed with this. It's truly is a historic cemetery, the kind that you might think of as being a little bit spooky, but great for photography. The cemetery officially dates back to 1845, though I've read that interments were going on there for many, many years before that. So you will see some very old headstones that were apparently, many of them were from very wealthy people, and there are some very prominent politicians and such that were buried there. But it's a large property. Again, I think it's about 35 acres. Lots of walking, easy walking. or you can drive, but they recommend walking. There's a lot of untamed vegetation, which is again great for this kind of photography rather than very what would you call it? They're not formal or manicured gardens around it, and some very old kind of spooky trees. So the photography opportunities there, I think, are wonderful. There are some trees in themselves that are worth photographing. I do recommend that you bring or wear waterproof shoes like duck boots or something, because the dew in the grass can be very wet. Also long pants, because there are typically quite a few ticks on the property, but because it is pretty heavily wooded. But a great place just to even walk around and certainly to photograph. The caretaker of the property will be meeting us and giving us a little bit of the history of the cemetery before we get started on it. But take good note of the email that Joe sent out about directions to getting there, because it can be very confusing. It's in the Allison neighborhood, which is right outside of Harrisburg. And if you go by your GPS instructions, you may end up in some very dicey neighborhoods. So follow the instructions in Joe's email to a T. Most GPS systems or apps will not give you those directions, but it is the most direct route without taking you through alleyways and one-way streets and whatnot. I have an iPhone, and Apple Maps does give you those same directions, but before you decide to use GPS, check out what route they give you and make sure that that's the one. We're starting at 8 o'clock, just to avoid lots of specular highlights in the trees and whatnot, and give us better lighting overall.
Okay, thanks, Elaine. Information about that trip and all of the others will be forthcoming in emails that you'll get from the club. So they'll be distributed, in the very near future. The one other trip that you can mark on your calendar is scheduled for Saturday, November the 4th. We're going to do a Mechanicsburg photo walk. Now, this is a repeat to a large degree of a trip that we've done several times, and we'll be visiting several local businesses in Mechanicsburg, giving special access, including Jumper Shoe, where they're happy to have us and invite us to go back in the working area to photograph the machinery and the tools that they use. Hopefully we'll be able to visit Hershey Violin, a church in Mechanicsburg, and a number of other establishments. So that's planned tentatively for Saturday, November 4th. As I say, emails will be forthcoming regarding each one of these trips. Yeah, one other thing, I have mentioned previously that we're working with Fine Art Photo to offer some apparel for you that lists the West Shore Photography Club. Okay, that is going to be available shortly. We've come to some definitive arrangements, and sometime this week we'll send an email out with an order form, and you can place your order for a t-shirt in a variety of different colors or a hooded sweatshirt. We're limiting it to those two, t-shirt and hooded sweatshirt, but both will be available in a number of colors, with the design that was most popular according to members voting. Okay, anybody have any questions or comments before we get started with the image review? Very good, thank you. We are pleased to have our very own Mike Donovan on the ticket tonight to do the critiques, the image reviews. So without further ado, I'll just turn it over to Mike. It's all yours. And by the way, if I happen to disappear for a while, the bandwidth is a little low here. It's a little sketchy, so I'll try to make it through the entire meeting. But if I disappear, Mike's well qualified to take over. Thank you, Mike. It's all yours.
Hey, thank you. Let me do the share screen. Okay, we good?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. All right, first of all, I do have to make an apology. I just got home from a trip of my own a day or two ago, so I did not have time to research artists to recommend to you. That I'll do the next time. Okay, Morning on the Moraine is the first one. This is Moraine Lake in Alberta, Canada. It is often photographed, and in fact, it's turned out that it's too often photographed, and personal vehicles are no longer allowed to this spot. It will be tour vehicles or park vehicles or so on. So whoever got this shot, you got the shot in time. The light is really impressive. The framing is excellent. One suggestion I might have about your exposure is, and this goes for a couple different ones, is I know it's a big thing now to expose to the right, meaning push your histogram over to the right, but I'm old school. I always learned expose under slightly to the highlights, expose to the highlights, because it's easier to deal with the shadows than it is the highlights. Now, I know there's people who think the opposite, but in this case, I think it would have helped you to underexpose a bit. You would get the proper exposure or the richer color exposure on the mountains, and then you could pull up the shadows in the foreground. So that's just a suggestion. And in fact, you can still do that now with your editing software. You can give that a try and see what you think. I like the framing of the trees in front. Again, the lighting is absolutely beautiful. The cool and warm colors work together here nicely. Even though it may not look like it, you do have an orange cast on the mountains, which plays off very, very nice against the famously blue waters of the lake. So good work there with the color for sure. And you can probably see a difference in the, I guess you'd say, the calmness of the cool colors in the foreground and the richness and the activity of the warm colors in the background. It may sound ridiculous, but there's science behind those things for sure. I was wondering, and I'm going to ask a little later, if this has a tiny bit of a glow or a little tiny Orton effect, something like that. It looks rich in the front, and try and make the back a little richer if you would. Let's see. Oh, I know what else I wanted to say. The leading line is a good, let's see here. Can you see my cursor?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The leading lines that you have working here are very nice, and they follow back into, I believe it's called the Valley of the 10 Peaks, follow all the way back in, which is a good compositional tool. Also, repetition, repetition, repetition. And you'll notice that there's a linear perspective at work here. Smaller, 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 meaning further, further, further. So good work here. You've got some triangles at work. Nice job. One suggestion I would make, and these images made it so that I have to be really picky. So that means you've done really great work. Down here in the bottom left, I would dispose of that, because what happens is when somebody works their way around the edges of the image, your eye will get caught there. So I would just wipe that out. Other than that, I think you're good to go. Again, my suggestions are to try to make this look richer and dispose of this. Okay, who did this? And by the way, I will get $5 for every time I have to say, or Dennis has to say, unmute yourself. That'll be a $5 fine. No one? Okay.
Well, let's see if is Rick on board, who could tell us who the photographer was.
I don't think he is. He was under the weather.
Okay. All right, then we don't know. So we'll move
Hey,
on.
hey, Dennis, this is Mark.
Yes.
It was Zachary Berkman.
Oh, okay.
And he's not here?
Apparently not.
Okay. Canaan Valley, image number 2. The composition is quite good here. The colors are rich. The layers are used very, very well. One suggestion I might have, and I know this probably drove you bananas, is dealing with the sky. Maybe a little more detail over here, but maybe not. Maybe if you like how it outlines the tree, then stick with that. Otherwise, my suggestion is maybe try and make this a bit richer if you can. But if you're the artist, if you want this as a background to the tree, stick with the way it is. Anything that I say, maybe try this, maybe try that, it's a suggestion. You're the artist. You knew what you wanted to do, not me. So just keep that in mind. It's a suggestion. One thing I might suggest also is, I'm not sure if this was done with a filter, but be careful of your focusing. Now, I realize it was a foggy day, and that softens the sharpness as well, but you've got a tremendous amount of detail in here, so be a little careful with your sharpness. The use of layers is really good. You've got a layer and a layer and another one and another one, another one. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful use of layers, which adds quite a lot of depth to your shot. Really, really nice work there. And also, I know I mentioned this a lot of times, the use of triangles is really beneficial to some compositions, and this is one of them. Even down here, and the weeds, and here. I mean, you've got triangles working for you like the pieces of a puzzle, and that's really, really quite good. Very, very nice there. Let's see. Oh, one other thing I want to mention is you have an amount of white here, and it's clean. There's no spots. It's what I would call a clean print. And I'm guessing you worked hard on that and it paid off. So really nice work there. Your lighting is an overcast day, so it's smooth and beautiful. We say sometimes it's the world's biggest softbox. And that makes it look really nice. You don't have harsh shadows to deal with. Good job there. I like the warm colors against the, against the cool colors. This is even a warm green, but you've got the cool back here against the warm right here. The cool right here against the warm right here. And when you have a cool color side by side with a warm color, especially in a complementary color setup, each makes the other pop. So good use of color there. Very nice. Let's see. One other thing, it says, hold on here. Oh, I know what else. You made something that was ordinary extraordinary. You know, a lot of people walk through these fields and don't really notice. So good work there. Very good work there. Your colors are rich, which they should be in a shot like this. My only suggestion again is work on that sky a little bit, but if that's how you like it, you leave it alone. Okay, who did this one? Now nobody's going to say because they have to pay.
Yeah. Do we know who the photographer was?
Hello? Can you hear
Yep,
me?
yep,
It's
yep.
Ron Maddox.
Go right ahead.
It's Ron Maddox's photo.
Okay, Ron, anything you want to tell us about the photo?
Yeah, it's interesting. We were in the valley just photographing, but we were there early. This was barely the sun was up. It's a 4-second exposure, so it was very dark. And a lot of the colors and stuff you see, I had to work really hard to bring those out too.
Yeah.
But I've been really pleased with this photo.
Good. With a super long exposure like that, it's also harder to maintain really crisp sharpness because you have movement in the fog, you have the atmosphere you're trying to shoot through, there's water droplets in the air, and so on. So good work.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, the high one. A nice composition, very nice composition. I like the use of color here. Again, the cool color and the warm color. You may not think that there's warm colors in the background, but there are. And they play off nicely against the cool colors in the front. So good work there. Let's see. It seems a little bit soft, but I'm looking at it on a computer screen, not a print. So be sure about your crispness, your focus. But if it's a long exposure like the last one, that makes a big difference. Again, you're using layers here. There's one, here's one, here's one, another. That leads a person through your image. And I'm not saying you walk around until you find something with layers, but recognize that it's helpful to your shot. Again, a clean print. I like how the trees repeat the mountains. So it looks sort of like a mini mountain range in the front and the huge one in the back. Good work there. Cool and warm colors. One thing that's kind of cool is including only part of the pond so that you'll get the real stars of the show, which are in the background. And not a problem there. That little breeze makes it so you don't get a good reflection anyway. So no problem there. My only suggestion here is watch your sharpness. Keep an eye on your sharpness. Other than that, good composition, good use of color, and an awe-inspiring view. Okay, who did this one?
This is Dick Messner. If you look sort of to the right, just peeking out of the clouds is the highest mountain in North America. I am at Camp Denali, 35 miles north of Denali Mountain to take this photograph a month and a half ago.
Very nice. It's easy to get all flummoxed when you're looking at something like that and you're thinking, oh man, I got to get this exposure right. Oh, this is so beautiful. It's nice that you kept your head anyway.
I was there for a little over 2 weeks and had 1.5 days of sunshine. This was the only morning the sun came up.
So you are actually, if you've seen the peak of Denali, you're a member of the 30% club.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, now I thought about how I want to pronounce this, and I think it's Hoover Dam, I think is the proper pronunciation due to the spelling of the title. And this made me laugh because what you did was you turned an absolutely hopeless situation into your advantage and you made it something humorous. And that all hinged on your title. Without the title, it's not funny. Without the title, it's just, why would he do that? Why would she take that? But with the title, it makes it a bit of a chuckle for sure. Because sometimes when you're traveling and you get to a spot and you cannot get the shot, there's wires in the glass, there's people everywhere, that we all know how that feels. So you took a bad situation and made it into something you could use. So good work there for sure. As far as suggestions go, The bottom right, I would get rid of that little triangle down there, because what happens is the value of this, which means, I guess the easiest way to explain value is if you would turn this to black and white. Painters do what's called a value study, where they paint their painting in only one color, usually black or a dark red. That way they can see where are the light areas, where are the dark areas without dealing with the color. So this value is strong. So eventually your eye is going to get there. And it's not necessary for it to do that. So just get rid of that, because you've got already things that work to emphasize your title. Hoover Dam. You've got things going there for you to make it funny. So the technical issues, the stuff in your way, is part of the joke. Now the composition of the actual shot is good. You're using thirds here. You're using a leading line here. You've got some perspective here going to a vanishing point. So it's not like a terrible photograph. It's a fun photograph, at least to me anyway. The light is harsh and strong, which is part of the Hoover Dam. If I'd only been there in the evening or early in the morning. The blue and orange combination makes the colors pop for sure. The photograph is actually something creative, and it all hinged on the title. So I'm not usually big on titles, but this is a good title for sure. So what I would do is get rid of this, and anything else you get rid of takes away the joke. So I think you're good to go. Just checking here. Who did this?
That would be me, Tom Dry.
Did I miss any of the jokes?
Well, I almost called it Hoover Damn It, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to take anybody off. But this was straight off of an iPhone. I mean, I just wow, look at this, and it just happened. I mean, and I agree with you. The lower right hand corner. I think after I submitted that, that's when it stuck out to me. Oh, that. But I didn't Photoshop. I didn't do anything with this. Straight off my camera, or off my phone, actually. So, and thank you very much for the compliments. And that's kind of how I operate. I like kind of oddball, geometric, weird stuff happen in photographs. So, thank you very much. I'm really flattered.
You're welcome. I'm glad that you said you like weird stuff. So I didn't have to.
I do. Oh, you'll see. If I post anything to the Facebook page, you'll see.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, number 5 is rustic warmth. I like the composition. I like the rich colors. That's what I mean by slightly underexposing. And then all of the details in the chinking come to life. So nice work there for sure. One suggestion I might have is a looser crop here on the left. And look how comfortable this looks with the extra space, and how tight this looks without it. So if you have a little extra space over there, try it with a little looser crop. Not a lot, but just enough to give it some breathing room over there. It's a great exposure, like I said. And one thing that's really great is the inside is exposed so you can see, and the outside is exposed correctly. I like the repetition of the flowers, of the containers. I like that the outside is a cool light. The inside is a warm light. And again, that cool and warm makes for a contrast. And that's what draws the eye, really, is contrast. That's why I try to get you to get rid of white spots that are too white, because the eye is drawn to the contrast. Let's see. It's a clean print. It's a beautiful overcast day. Again, the biggest soft box in the world. You didn't have to fight with shadows or anything. Makes it look watercolorish. The red and green is a real nice complementary color set. And the red picks up this and then picks up this. The green starts here, works here, and there's even a slight bit of green in there. It's a really nice work there. Again, warm inside and cool outside, the red and green. It's a creative shot. I like the flowers and then the plant and even the extra ones down here. So nice work. Lots and lots of rhythm here. Lots of rhythm, lots of layers. Really, really nice stuff here. My only suggestion would be a little more space over here. Other than that, it looks great. And I'm curious as to whether you put just the tiniest glow or Orton on it. Who did this one?
Mike, it's Mary Fox. It's Mary Fox, Mike.
Yep.
I did that. That actually is a cabin that belongs to Clyde and Barb McGeary.
Oh, okay.
They took me up there one afternoon and we were leaving in the evening, which is when that's my last shot I took. And it was really a horizontal picture and I made it vertical. And that's why it's so tight on the left-hand side. So I will take your advice and make it wider and see what happens. But
Well, see what you think.
yeah, thank you so much for your compliments and instructions. I'm always worried about spots, so I was real careful with that.
It's a clean print.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Can you see how this does look a little more comfortable in its spot?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Old Man Waiting. The first thing that struck me here about the composition is actually this balance here and here. Again, triangulation. The bird fits right into that natural frame, which is very, very nice. One suggestion I might have would be to just, not a lot, but try making the bird a little bit lighter so it jumps out a little more from these values. Just not a lot, but just see what you think. Give it a try anyway. Let's see. The sharpness is good. The use of triangulation is good. The placement of the bird is good. You're off to the side. You can't help that the eye is pretty much centered, but that's how it goes because you have the body off to the side. And that's not a problem, at least for me, compositionally. I think it looks fine. I like the fact that your background is so smooth and so soft, which shows that you're using your f-stops to your advantage for sure. Let's see. I like the calm tones, the browns against the calm blues. So there is a contrast, but it's not huge. So good there. Let's see. One thing I might try, and sometimes it messes it up. Try and darken this slightly. It's kind of harsh because this value right here is the same as this value in here almost. So they're competing for which one. What happens is, you've heard me say that dark recedes and light advances. You can see that here. Excuse me, this actually looks closer than this. So try darkening this. Again, I know it gets gray sometimes, so don't go quite that far. See what you think. Darken this, lighten this, everything else looks great. Really good. Nice and sharp. Good catch. Who did this one?
That's mine, Mike Terry. I shot it back at Indian Town Gap. There's a small creek back there I found, and he just standing there waiting. He reminded me of an old man just sort of crouched over.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you for your comments.
Do they make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This also was very hilarious. Room with a view. We've all showed up at the hotel and thought, what the heck? It didn't look like this in the brochure. That is a view, actually. They didn't lie, but you used it to your advantage. And hopefully you'll put that on with your review of the cabin and show people that they best not plan on looking out their bedroom window into the mountains or anything like that. But you did. You took a bad situation and you made it kind of funny. I like that you used, again, cool light outside, warm light inside. Your exposure is excellent. You are sharp, which also is not always easy when you're in dark light and shooting into light, if that makes sense. One thing that I would suggest is on this right edge, you get rid of this. You can pull your crop in the tiniest bit or whatever you want to do to get rid of that. I'd suggest you get rid of it. And now that I told you that the higher value jumps forward, you can see that here. And that the eye is drawn to contrast. You can see that here. You don't want to see that here. So just make that disappear, and maybe this corner make disappear too. The other thing I would suggest is you make this disappear. But the main part of your image, it has some wit. It's sharp. Your placement is just really good. By placement, I mean, sometimes they say, don't put your subject in the center. This screams to be in the center. And also you'll see that the doors lead right to the funniest part of the image. Or if you paid a lot to rent a room with a view, the not so funny part of the image. So good shot. Let's see, the warm and cool. I ask you to remove the distractions. Other than that, I like it. I like the warm and cool combination. The blue here, the orange here, comes right to life. Okay, who did this one? Okay. Unbreakable bond. It doesn't matter really what the creature is. The fact is that you can do a portrait. And this is a portrait. And you know, in the portraits, they say the eyes have it. The eyes are the window to the soul. Well, take a look. The eyes are the window to the soul, for sure. Now, you can also tell the calmness, the peacefulness. You can feel the bond between what I'm going to presume is the mother and the young. The expression is absolutely perfect. And the thing about all of this is, it was in an enclosure. So the person that did the shot overcame some obstacles to make that happen. So it is an absolutely tremendous portrait. It's exposed very, very nicely. You can see the detail everywhere. The eyes are slightly above center, which is very nice also. And there's a beautiful diagonal line that brings this photograph to life. Diagonal lines are usually more active than horizontals, which promote strength, or I'm sorry, verticals, which promote strength, or horizontals, which promote peace. This promotes activity. And it actually, the activity is us looking and following. Let's see. One suggestion that I have, that is this area right here. You can clone it out, you can darken it, you can burn it. You might even want to try a vignette that'll help darken this down, or darken it and then put a vignette on. But that is really the only suggestion that I have. It's absolutely beautiful. It's crisp. And it's a meaningful portrait. So deal with this and then try a vignette and see what you think. Okay, whose is this? I think I know, actually. Not here? Okay.
Yeah,
Hope I
apparently
didn't
not.
hear. Hope I
Mike,
didn't.
could we take a second and go back to Room with a View? I missed a cue. Steve Shedden did this image, and he
Okay.
emailed me with this message. The image is called Room with a View and was made at a cabin in Yosemite 2 weeks ago. I thought the tree also contrasted nicely with the knotted pine of the room. I considered spot removing some of the shade's knobs, but after trying that, I preferred leaving them in. I could have lowered the tripod slightly to make the open window pane angles a little more even, but I like the image. So that's from Steve.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay.
I think he made good decisions.
All right.
Okay, up and away. I'm thinking this is by Dennis Baker. Since it says Dennis Baker.
Oh my goodness. Oh, my apologies.
Understood. I think
Those
I
darn
would've
presets.
I think I may have guessed anyway. All right, let's see
Right.
here. Good freeze of the action. Good expressions on their faces. And what I like is they are frozen, but the ball has just the slightest motion blur to it, which shows that they've already sent it, or one guy sent it anyway. Is that your grandson by any chance?
No, that's not.
Okay. So I do like that. I like the expressions on their faces, the fact that again they're frozen in time. Both are off the ground. That's very cool as well. It's sharp. The exposure is really quite good, which is not easy in a sporting event, especially a nighttime sporting event where well, a high school one anyway, and the lighting is kind of well, hit or miss, I guess you'd say. But this is exposed well, and it's nice and crisp. And again, that's not always easy. The again, diagonal lines denote action and activity. So that's like good as far as composition goes. It's actually a triangular composition, which also is excellent to use if you can. One thing that I would deal with if I could is I would get rid of the Gatorade, and the blue is causing a bit of an issue for me. If it was any other color, it wouldn't. But the fact that the blue makes a triangle here brings it to my attention. So maybe change the color here or darken this. It's too bad that the number on the back here is blue, because for me that connects them. So maybe you want to deal with this. I would definitely deal with this. I like that the bench picks up the colors here, and one of these two things can pick up the color here. So probably easiest to get rid of the color there. At least that's my suggestion, because it creates a triangle, and that always is coming to the attention. The light is smooth and even, absolutely perfect. No shadows, no harshness. You can see their faces. Let's see. That's my only other suggestions really, is here and here. And maybe you want to block out your name too, Dennis, okay?
Oh no, don't want to do that.
Okay, true. But other than that, the exposure's great. It's nice and sharp and crisp. Peak of the action. So good work.
Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. And this was taken in a Mechanicsburg soccer match just a week and a half ago. And it was right after the sun went down. So was a great time to take pictures. It was during the golden hour or just after the golden hour. And when the sun goes down a little bit more and the light is dominated by the stadium lights, the light gets very ugly. So this was a good time to get the shot. And now that you mentioned it, I appreciate the comment about the guy in the back. I really should have taken this image into Photoshop and used generative fill. And I think it would have done a good job of getting rid of that guy in the background.
Well, give it a shot for sure.
Yeah. So that would have improved the image, I think. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay. The Italian Lake Bridge. It's always kind of nice when something that has been photographed a zillion times looks like it's something new and fresh. This is the kind of evening that many people that don't do photography would say, I'm not going out there. It's cold, it's damp, it's foggy. But you did the opposite. You used the conditions to your advantage. And that's what a photographer does. So very nice work there. As far as my suggestions go, I would deal with these somehow. Cloning them out would be an absolute, excuse me, a nightmare. So simply darkening, burning, making them a different dark color, whatever you would prefer, I would suggest with these, because the rest is absolutely wonderful. And again, I talked about values, and you can see the value of this is really lighter than almost everything except up here. So your attention will come here. Now, it's certainly not a lighter value than this, but when the blues are considered, it is. But it's again, it's beautiful. This little splash of red here is always spectacular on this bridge. Your exposure is good. It's a difficult exposure. And one reason that I say your exposure is good is because it has to be a fairly long exposure, but these have not been overwhelmed by the aura. A lot of times when you do a long exposure, the light just keeps adding up on the sensor, and eventually you can't see the source of it. This is really nice, really crisp, and you're using it to your advantage. You can see size-wise, they get just slightly smaller. So you're using perspective there to take the viewer back into the back. Let's see. Your light is absolutely beautiful. Again, the lights are well defined. That little pop of red is nice. One other suggestion I have is right over here. That's not necessary to make your image better, so get rid of that. And down here, you can get rid of that. Other than that, it's very, very beautiful. See what you can do with these. See what you can do with these. Like I said, darken them, burn them, paint over them, whatever you can do. I would not suggest you go out to Italian Lake and remove them. So that might be a bad idea. Other than that, I think you're good to go. Really nice here. Really, really nice. Whose is this?
Cheryl Heberlig.
And what made you go out in the middle of a foggy, cold evening? This looks like it's even frozen over a bit.
It was very creepy that night, and I always end up in places where I shouldn't be. But
perfect.
But yeah, it was dreary and misty and cold, but I thought that it would look pretty cool with the mist and all that.
It definitely looks cool.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, exposed. This one, the subject is completely isolated. It's isolated by light value. It's isolated by color. It's isolated by sharpness. You've used those three things to grab the viewer's attention. and again, a diagonal line. You can almost feel this thing swinging into the picture. So beautiful exposure, nice and sharp and crisp where it needs to be, soft where it needs to be. No distractions. Again, the diagonal line is impressive. Let's see. Your subject is very well lit. It's antique looking. I really don't have very many suggestions here. Really, really nice job. Who did this one?
Mike, Dave Marchetto, thanks very much for your comments.
You're welcome. It's awesome.
My backup title was Where's Potter?
I like this one.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Arrow Rock. One thing that is impressive is that you saw the pattern in the first place, which means you're not just wandering around, what can I photograph? You're looking. Secondly, what a suggestion I might have is to loosen the shot just a little bit. You're a little tight here. If you're trying to balance it with the back, then okay, but I like it just a slightly looser so the viewer can work his way around the frame or her way around the frame. Let's see. One other suggestion I might have is a bit more contrast. Now you can do that maybe with a little more saturation in the blues, or just the contrast slider. Give that a try and see what you think. Don't lose your detail in here, which I have a feeling that may be why you have this exposed in what's called high key, meaning it's a little brighter than middle exposure. So give that a try. Maybe not darken it, maybe saturate it a little bit more or contrast it a little bit more. See what you get there. Because as you can see, there's less light on the reflection, so it's a little bit richer. And the colors are a little bit richer. There's slight blues in there. There's grays in there. So give that a try if you would. Let's see. I like that you composed an abstract, a symmetrical abstract. That's really nice as well, because many times abstracts are not put in for an image review, so you did good there. Let's see. The white spot. I looked at this and then I thought, no, let it in. It delineates the edges of the arrow. So I decided to go ahead and leave it there and go with it. Let's see. Smooth overcast lighting. Your use of cool colors is very good. The blues and the greens, it keeps it calm and relaxing. Good capture. My suggestion is a looser crop and a little more contrast. Who did this one?
Yeah, Mike, this is Mark Cortado. That's my shot.
Okay.
And I did play around with the crop on the front end there, and it just brought in another rock shape that took
Okay.
away from the arrowhead look.
All right.
So I did struggle with that a little bit.
Okay. Other than
Yes.
that, are you happy with it?
Yeah, I think I will play around with the brightness and the contrast a little bit.
Oh, okay.
If I can make it pop some, but yes, thank you.
Okay, sure. Splashdown. Your timing is really good. You hit it on the impact, and that gives the image impact. So really nice work there. It's eye-catching, it's sharp. And one other thing, the exposure looks clean. By clean, I mean there's no burnout. And if there's no burnout on the screen, there probably would not be on the print either. So very nice there. It's difficult when you're exposing something white. And the exposure to make this correct probably drove this to be so dark, which I don't mind at all, really, because I know it's water because of this. So good work there. Let me see. Oh, again, the diagonal line promoting action. I struggled a little bit with these dots. I know they're water dots, but if you look closely, one or two of them are green. So if you want to take them out, do it. If you want to let it in for a little more texture, do it. I'm just want to bring it to your attention that they're a little bit of an off color from the other ones. Let's see. The lighting is excellent. It looks like it's studio light. The blue and the coolness is nice. Very, very good. And also, want to compliment you on your choice of a border for this. And not making it a pure not making it a pure white border, because that would have fought with this. So you were wise to use the cream colored border. I also like the triangle. Again, these things help. They really do help. So it's sharp, it's crisp, it's exposed well. Check those dots, just the ones that are a different color, and everything else looks great. Who did this one?
That's mine, Kurt Wilkie. I took this at Lake Marburg, Doris State Park, which is
Okay.
Just south of Hanover. Yep.
Your timing is impeccable.
20 frames a second will do that.
Understood. It looks great.
Thank you.
Okay, number 14 is Wildflower. It's really nice that you isolated your subject. So you're using your aperture to your advantage. Also, it's nice that you softened back here, but not up here. So this makes this your subject. And this guy here sitting all by himself is on the same plane as these. And then you see how they fall back to softness. This a little bit, the leaves a little bit. So you're adding some dimension there. And also with the light and the dark. Again, look how the dark recedes into the background. Very, very nice use of your aperture there for sure. The suggestion I might have is take a look at doing a little color balancing. It looks a little green to me, or a little yellow. And I know it sounds ridiculous to say something with leaves looks a little green, but I'm looking at the white blossoms. So in your software, try backing off on the green, or you can add red because red's a complementary color. You could try desaturating a little. Try a couple different things. See if you can get those flowers to look a little whiter rather than have the color cast. Of course, you can always use the color cast tool too, the dropper. I liked your sharp, clear details. The white has sharp details in it, so you didn't burn those out. Very nice there. One suggestion I might have is down here. This has a reddish color to it, and up against the green, it will make this look even redder. That's how complementary colors work. So red and green are complements. So darken this. Again, maybe if you do a vignette, it might interfere here. So I would just try darkening here and see if you can get that toned down a little bit, because it's if you're working your way around the image, you'll hit this and think, oh, what's that doing there, or something like that. So see what you can do with that. That's really my two suggestions are to deal with this if it bothers you, and try a little more color correction here. Okay? Other than that, the composition's good. You're sharp, you're exposed well. So give those two things a try and see what you think. Okay, who did this?
Mark Albano. I did it, and thanks for those suggestions. I don't do enough of the color analysis and should do more of it. Should have had my wife look at it.
Well, I appreciate you not telling me to mind my own business. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you. Okay, the Watcher. the thing that got me here, made me chuckle, is this guy and this guy. That's pretty impressive. Whether you did it on purpose or not, just say that you did, because it's very cool. It's a nice repetition there. It makes it a little bit of a humor shot. It brings some life to it, a little more activity. So I like that. I like that combination there. One thing I might suggest, and I don't know if you did this or not, if you're ever there again, I think this is in Frederick, if I'm correct. If you're ever there again and you want that shot again, move a little bit to your right so that you can get this edge showing. I know you'll lose something up here with the tree, but then you'll have the whole image framed in. But that's being picky for sure. This is very cool, these two here. Let's see, be careful when you're resizing, because what happens is it does what's called pixelating, meaning if you have a low dots per inch, for lack of a better word, pixels per inch, if that's low, like some cameras put it out at 72 because that's standard for being online. And if you're dealing with enlarging or shrinking, or especially enlarging, and you leave it at 72, you'll get some what's called pixelating. Most people print at 300 dots an inch or 360. And there's some pixelating here, and you can see it if you look up close. But other than that, I mean, it's exposed well. It has, again, some humor to it. I like that they're facing each other. The gazes intersect. Let's see. I saw lower, let's see, white spots. Oh, I would get rid of this and a couple of these. And the reason I would is because it's contrasted hard with the black. And that makes them jump even more. That's the only reason I'm saying about getting rid of this. If you want to leave these here, they're not nearly as bothersome as this one. And these are probably blossoms of some kind. So if you want to let them there as part of it, fine. But the fact that you used a dark frame means this is going to be stronger. So just wipe that out. Let's see. I have, again, the warm and the cool colors. And I think that's it. Who did this one? Oh, yeah, $5 coming my way.
Okay, I'm done. I thought I had unmuted it already.
Let me give you my address. Go
Sorry
ahead.
It's Carla. Yes, you're right. It is in Frederick, and I was absolutely amazed at the beautiful murals around the city. Just gorgeous. And when we walked, and when I saw this, I said, I got to get this one. And yeah, there's a bit of humor. I thank you for the idea of the corner, bringing my attention to the corner of that white dot.
Oh, you're welcome.
And yeah, I see what you mean. If I had gone just slightly to the right, I may have been able to gain some space between the frame and the window.
Of course, when the light says walk and you're halfway across the street, you don't really want to stand there and compose your shot. I understand that.
We just do the best we can sometimes.
I
Thank
understood.
you, Mike.
Okay, you're welcome. The fourth season, number 16. Well exposed. Exposing snow and sand is not an easy thing. You have to do the opposite of what you think you should. You think you should stop down, but you shouldn't. You should open up, because what happens is your light meter tries to drive everything to an 18% gray, and you don't want the snow to be 18% gray. You want it to be white. So you have to open back up again. So really good work there. There's a very, very slight blue touch to it, which makes this orange really jump. And I'm impressed with the use of color in a lot of these. Really, really nice. You can see how these pop. Look at the difference here between this one and this one. Just a tiniest little bit of orange, and it's jumping. You can see some orange in here. Use of orange and blue in this shot is really, really quite good. The focus, the exposure are tremendous. And I'm curious if there's a teeniest glow on it or not. It is absolutely beautiful. Of course, when it's snowing like crazy, then it gives you that feel, that soft look too. The leading lines are absolutely great. Back into the image. Again, the triangle. Beautiful stuff. Repeated shapes. I had mentioned that diagonal lines promote activity and action, but the vertical lines promote strength and power, which is why the old time banks used to have big pillars in front of them. So beautiful work there. It's a clean print. Again, a huge soft box. We don't go out when it's sunny every single time. Blue and orange, everything looks great. Who did this one? This is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Mike. It's Elaine Shook. And I'm actually kind of embarrassed to talk about my driveway after seeing so many beautiful landscapes before me, but I literally took this from inside of my garage door.
Nice work.
Yeah, to make matters worse, I was in my pajamas because my husband was on his way out with the snowblower and I had to quickly grab it before he ruined the scene. So
we do what we must for the shot.
This is a part of my series called The Color of Cold. And I had to do quite a bit of color balancing on it. It was overcast this morning, and so overall it had a very grayish tone. So I did use the eyedropper to whiten the snow a bit, and also gave it a cooler tone, pushed down the white balance slider a bit to give it that blue tone to give it that sense of cold,
Right.
which is what my series is all about. And I didn't really do anything to the redness in the trees. That just kind of came out that way. When those trees are wet, they do have a kind of an orange red tone to the bark.
Yeah.
So that was quite natural. It was still snowing when I took this.
Okay.
Which gave it a very grainy look, which I wasn't crazy about. It was okay, but I wanted something a little bit softer. So I used a very low opacity artistic filter to apply it, which gave it that soft look. I did not use any kind of an Orton technique on it at all.
Okay, good. And when you probably found, hopefully, that
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I don't know who's saying that. I think it's Zoom.
Suddenly I can't hear you.
All right, hold on.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm holding down the space bar. I don't know what happened. When you leaned toward the blue, my guess is that helped the orange show up.
Very possible.
Yeah, so beautiful shot.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm talking now. Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. Bus Stop Abyss, number 17. Tremendous use of angles and shapes and forms. and a curve. One curve, which really doesn't exist when the light is off. So this is very cool indeed. One suggestion that I do have is a slightly tighter crop on the right, so that you're balanced with your crop on the left. You don't have to worry about it being a boring crop because you've got the waiting room there off to the left. So I would pull in that right crop just a little bit to try and balance out the right and the left. Your exposure is really good, really good. The focus is excellent, which it's not easy when it's in the dark for sure. Let's see. The composition is really good. I mentioned I like the lines. And again, there's layers here. There's one, there's one, there's one. Here's a big one. Actually, this is a little darker, and then it changes up into these values. So good work there. Even though there's not much depth in the image, you do have depth in your photograph. So nice there. One suggestion I might have, and it might be because it's on the screen, is you're really hot right here, which I know you can't really help that. I understand it. But I just want to bring it to your attention. If you print this, this will be white paper because there is no white ink in your ink set. So be a little careful about that. Your black and white is a great choice. Very creative work. I had looked at maybe disposing of these, but I think they help because then there would just be this black nothing there. So I think they help. So really my main suggestion is, I'm not sure what to do about this. Maybe on your image, it's not this hot because like I said, we're on a screen, and pull in that right crop a little bit. Other than that, I think it's beautiful. Who did this?
I'm the culprit. So first,
Mike,
first
nice
of all,
work.
Mike, yeah, the two lights at the top, left and right, I did remove. I must have uploaded the wrong image. I did remove those. And I could prove that. But the middle light, yeah, very hot. I took several images of this walking back from one of our, I think we were doing a Capitol shoot with the fountain.
Okay.
And it was on the way back to the car. Yeah, very hot. Nothing I could do about it.
Right.
It was handheld. I shot it at like a really high ISO. So not much I could do. I do agree with you on the bottom right, that bush kind of down there. I left that intentionally because as you can see from left to right, the curb kind of goes up.
Yep.
So I left that there intentionally to kind of add more space with the bus stop because I wanted the pillars on the left and right to be kind of equal,
right,
symmetrical. And trying to clone all that out, and it just didn't work. So.
No, the bush is fine. I just was suggesting that you pull in your crop on the right a tiny bit because the pillar is bigger on the right than it is on the left.
Is it?
Well,
I used the grid mode.
Okay, then
you might be right.
No, go with the numbers.
Yeah, I was trying to be as even as possible. But thank you for your critique. I definitely appreciate it.
Oh, it's a great image. It really is quite good. And sometimes you're exactly right. There's not a darn thing you can do about it.
And the worst part was in color, with that light in the middle, you had kind of a gradient, a much nicer gradient of a very warm light.
Yeah.
Going to kind of a softer light. There's just nothing I could do. I thought black and white looked better. So
it looks great. It really does. And
thank you, sir.
Sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes it's how it is.
4-1 good guys, by the way.
Is it?
It is.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Okay. Number 18 is Jazz. And this is actually, I don't use this word often, but I will this time. It's very clever. It's a great shot. Very, very, very good catch. Or you were enough of a photographer to ask him to pose like that, which is also very admirable indeed. Very cool shot. The black and white is a good choice for sure. Your exposure's good. The only hot spots are probably because it's on a screen a little bit down here. I like your use of the repetition again. Very, very nice there. My suggestions are I would get rid of this for reasons I already mentioned. The really light and the really dark have a tendency to cause contrast. I know this is part of the shirt probably, but think about disposing of this. And there was one other, a little tiny twig up here. So just clean those things out. Normally, I would think this was way too tight, but the fact that this is so light, it doesn't even draw your attention really at all because it's blended into the sky pretty well. Good portrait lighting. Black and white's a great choice. It's a creative setup. Clean up the distractions and you're good to go. Who did this?
Thanks, Mike. Don Uvik.
Cool.
Yeah, this was on the Frederick trip also, the mural of Lester Bowie. He's a jazz native of Frederick and was a jazz performer himself. Actually studied research jazz. And yeah, I was going to ask the performer to shift over a little bit, and but I decided just to kind of wait. That's the way I like to take street shots. I really don't want to do a setup if I don't have to. So I just waited and waited and waited. And it just worked. And thank you. I wasn't sure about this image. I mean, it was during a festival. I just couldn't figure out what else to do. What you suggested is good. Thank you.
One other suggestion is maybe you want to darken this guy's head.
Oh, geez, I didn't even see that. I didn't even notice. Yeah, or get rid of them, one or the other.
Yeah, you could do that.
All right, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, number 19 is Fallen. The thing that impressed me the most here is your what's known as juxtaposition, two things that don't belong together but are together. And that is the hard, solid rock and the organicness of the plants. I like that combination, like when there's fallen leaves on a rock or something. That's always nice. One thing I might suggest is usually I don't say this about color, but I would desaturate this orange a little bit. Because I know this is the star of the show, but it's even overwhelming a little bit to me. I like these repeated shapes, but if you could try desaturating the orange a little bit, see what you think of that. And what's happening is you have blue in here, and that's making the orange pop even more because complementary colors do that to each other. That's why this looks so good, the red and the green, the reddish and the greenish. So back off on this a little bit. I like the fact that they're laying here, they're fallen, like your title says. And this guy out here, I might take a little bit off of the end here, but I'd let it there because I like how it starts with the green and works through the plants and then the fallen and then the dead leaf and then on. Maybe you want to just take a little bit off of the end there. Let's see. Good use of layers, I have mentioned. You have layers again. That always adds good depth. I have a white spot here on the right side that I would take care of this right there because of the fact that the values are about the same as this. This is a little, but they jump against each other. So if you get rid of this, this might disappear a little more. And in fact, you can darken this a little more if you want to. The red and green complement is good. The warm and cool colors, maybe desaturate and remove the spots. That's about all I have for this one. Who did this?
That's from Mary Eileen Carson.
All right.
That's also from the Frederick, Maryland walk with the
Ah.
Frederick camera click. I'm guessing that the branch got ripped off the bush that was nearby, probably from a bad rainstorm or something. But yeah, I kind of liked how it was just laying there, partially still fresh and partially dead.
Right. So you're saying you did not take your scissors and cut it off of somebody's bush like photographers do?
No.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Not this time at least, but yeah, no.
Understood. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Koa Kingdom. Somebody's had been to Hawaii, I do believe. The thing that hit me here is the use of the negative space. All these shapes where there's nothing is called negative space. And they do play a role in some compositions, and they do play a role in this one. You can follow this right up here. The negative space really is quite nice in this. And all of a sudden, it's like those things you used to have that you'd look at and something 3D would pop out. Like you'd have to cross your eyes a little bit. The composition here is really quite nice. The other thing that's quite nice is the way you use the light, because it's splotchy, and that can be a pain. So good job there. I mean, you can look through this image for hours, really. Let's see. I have a good use of negative space. The black and white is a real good choice. Your exposure is good. You have detail on the bark, detail on the trunks. The main trunk goes back more and more and more. So you follow it here, and you follow it here, and you follow it here, even though it's probably one behind it. You follow it there. Really, really interesting. Again, the negative space really, really helps here. There are no distractions. Obviously, if there were, you couldn't find them anyway. Black and white. And one thing I will say to our fellow photographers, sometimes it pays to look up. And in this case, it paid to look up. It's a great composition. It's a good exposure. It's nice and crisp. The negative space is beautiful. Who did the shot?
That's me, Patrick Grill. I took that in the Waimea Valley on Oahu 2 years ago, and we were walking down the path to the falls, and my kids wanted to go swimming in the falls, and my wife kept on asking me, "Why are you looking at that tree?" And I sat there for about 20 minutes looking at this tree and was just fascinated by it. And so I sat up and took a good picture of it, I think.
Yeah, you did good. It's nice, really nice.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, sure. Okay, that is number 20. Thank you for handing in. I hope I didn't keep you too long, but you handed in so many images, and that's awesome. That's definitely awesome. Really good work. You probably noticed that I had to be extra picky. Great stuff. Dennis,
Very good, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Guys, as we usually do, would you please unmute yourself? And let's give Mike a nice round of applause.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Good job.
Nice job.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Does anyone
Thanks,
have any
Mike.
questions
welcome.
or comments for Mike or any of the participants tonight?
I might label that last picture, "Where's Waldo?"
All right.
Really great work. Just excellent images.
Beautiful.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, the quality of the image
Okay.
is just incredible. And Mike, we really appreciate your critiques. They've been very insightful.
Thanks.
David,
They're getting harder and harder.
Indeed.
David, where did you take your shot of the dragon?
Well, you know, you might have recalled it's Longwood Gardens, Terry.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's in that pavilion. It's actually the beginning of a very heavy brass railing.
Oh, okay. I know
Yeah,
what
it's
you're talking about.
inside the pavilion there, and
Yes.
everybody's walking around it. It was dark, and you know the most of the photos I took were just not sharp. And as Mike says, it's all in the eyes. So I had to kind of go back a few times to get the fall off I wanted and the focus in the eyes that I ended up with. But that's Longwood Gardens, Terry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any comments or questions? Excellent, guys. Okay, thanks for your participation and good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Thanks again, Mike.
You're welcome.